Well, church just keeps changing, doesn't it? When we started the year, everything was normal. We were in our normal locations, and then we went to all online services. And now some of us are able to go back, but we're distanced in our services. And some of us are going to more of a house church or small group model. That's what my church is doing. I know there's several worship leaders within the worship leader coaching community who are doing the same thing. I've heard from a handful of people, and there's a lot of questions arising about how do I lead worship for a house church? How do I spread myself across 2 or 4 or 10 mini campuses? I don't have a worship team for all of those. What do I do? And so I don't want you to freak out about that. My church actually has a little bit of experience with house church anyway. That's part of our regular rhythm, if you will. Quarterly we do a house church Sunday, and we meet in homes across our city. And so I have a little bit of experience with this, and so I want to share some of that with you. The first thing I would say is don't feel like you need a live band. Corporate worship does not require a live band. Corporate worship just requires people to worship together. That's all corporate worship is. And so don't feel like you have to have a huge band at every location. It's probably best if you don't. Have one leader at every location. We've learned over the last several months that people will worship and will respond to recorded worship sets. And so use that to your advantage. If you don't have the people to spread across multiple campuses, it's okay to continue to record a worship set and send that out to your campuses. Now, that said, I would still appoint a leader. And here's kind of the two ways to do that. If you do have someone who can lead, position them at a location. You should be at a location too. Even if someone else is doing a recorded set, then at least maybe there's 2 worship leaders. Great, you 2 are at a location there, and there's a recorded set somewhere else. If you have a bigger team, still appoint a leader from your worship team, or just someone who's a worshiper and have them lead even without an instrument. So you can do the recorded set, but just tell that person about leading and modeling worship. Have that person, kind of get people excited about worship, maybe pray into worship or pray out of worship, and be the leader of worship. You don't have to have an instrument to lead. We all know that, but in times like this, we seem to forget it. And so you have kind of 2 leaders. You have the leader who is a worship leader and the leader who is a worshiper, and both are great for house churches. The next thing I would say, start out, you don't have to do this the whole time, but start out with songs that people know. And I've actually suggested that quite a bit recently. I suggested that when I talked about going online for the first time. I've suggested that with churches meeting back together for the first time and bands getting together for the first time. The reason I'm suggesting it here is because it's a little bit of normalcy. Do some songs that people know, because it's a little awkward if you don't know the song anyway, but it's more awkward if 2 people over there know the song but 6 people over here don't, and you're in a living room. And so do some songs that everybody's going to know, some things that are really familiar to your church, some things that are anthems to your church, and that will go a long way. I would do that at least for the first couple of weeks, and then if you want to introduce something, great, but offer a sense of normalcy. That said, do acknowledge that things are different. Just like you did when you went online. Hey, things are going to be a little different for a little while. Talk about that. Hey, things are different. This isn't a huge worship service with 200 people in the room. This is 9 people in a room worshiping together. But you know what? You can talk about the Acts church, and you can talk about how the very beginning stages of the church were people just gathered in homes worshiping. And that's an incredible thing, an incredible experience, and it will really help you to connect with the church through generations when you do that. The last thing I would suggest is get feedback. After your first week, your second week, I don't know how long you're going to do this, but get feedback from different worship leaders, from staff people at your church, from key volunteers at your church, and then a handful of worshipers and attendees. Now, I wouldn't just ask everyone for their opinion, because then you're just going to get everyone's opinion, and it probably won't be too constructive or very helpful. If you want to set up a survey and send that out or something, I get that. That might be worth doing, but I would just pick out some key volunteers, key people that know ministry, people that know what you're trying to do, people that are excited about Jesus, people that are excited about the church moving forward and and that are just all in for the mission and vision of the church, and get their real thoughts on, hey, how did this work? Was it good? Was it beneficial? And then adjust accordingly. If the recording's not working out, okay, then I need to find someone to lead it up. Maybe it's that person who told you the recording didn't work. If the worship leader that you appointed at this location, man, I don't know how that's going. Great, well, maybe you need to switch locations. I don't know what the case may be, but you can figure that out. But get some feedback and see how it's going. Those are just a few tips for you for going into house church. If you have any other questions about it, hit me up anytime. I do have some experience with house church. I love doing it. That's what my church is doing. So if you need anything else, leave a comment, send me an email. I love connecting with worship leaders.